Now we're going to dive deep into the climate action pathway for water. My name is Maggie White. I am the Senior Manager for International Policy at CIWI, and I will be your MC for the next 3 thematic sessions and 3 spotlight sessions that will give meat, stories, insights into what is behind the climate action pathway and how we would love to have all of you engage with us. Because as James just said, this is just a starting point. And we have COP26 ahead of us, but we also have our global agendas to reach, whether it's the Paris Agreement or the SDG global agendas as well. First of all, some housekeeping information for those that have just joined us. They will be shared with you also in the chat box. The event is recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and the Zoom platform will run continuously throughout the day. We also would love for you to engage with us and spread the wonderful solutions, ideas, statements that were coming out from the session today. So please check out CIWI, IUCN, AGWA's, CDP, and UN Global Compact's Twitter handles, and don't forget the hashtag of Race to Zero. Of course, we are delighted to offer to all of you French and Spanish interpretation. Don't hesitate to use the global icon that's at the bottom of your screen to switch languages. And now, to start off with the meat of the meat. The theme of this session will be protecting people and restoring water resources and ecosystems. This is the first pillar of the climate action pathway for water. And I'm very excited to have very inspiring keynote speakers that will present and lay out the foundations of this. And then we'll go into 3 parallel breakout sessions in which you will have the opportunity to choose from. And then we'll reconvene here on this platform for a very exciting Q&A with my colleague, Daniela Lalario. Now, our first speaker, as you have probably heard her speak many times and is really a spearheading champion in the environmental space, is Inga Anderson, who is Executive Director of the United Nations Environmental Program. Inga, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and my great appreciation to all the good work that CIWI and the other partner organizations are doing here. I have to say that this was a session that I just could not miss. We are busy with the Finance and Common session. Today we're launching the One Health initiative, so I'm afraid I'm sort of popping in and popping out here, but I could not be in this session of that really focuses on the intersex between water and climate. So I really want to express a strong thanks to Stockholm International Water Institute and to the co-conveners. And just recall that water is our most precious resource, and it is under this growing strain. We all know that. And just those numbers that we've all heard, it sort of bears very quickly repeating. 20% of the world's aquifers are overexploited. 1/3 of all rivers in Latin America, Africa, and Asia suffering from pathogenic pollution. And of course, climate change changing all of this right before our eyes. Storms, droughts, desertification, etc. 2 billion people already living in water stress. So we know the numbers. 700 million people could be displaced by water scarcity. So that's just a highlight of what we know. So I want to mention, I mention these problems because, yeah, it sets the stage, but also it sets the stage for the solutions, which is what you're all talking about today. Because sustainable water management is the way to get to the solution, both to mitigating and to adapting to climate change. And in fact, when we think about adaptation and mitigation, both are reliant on strategies that will require water to succeed, right? An integrated view on water, land use, environmental flows is really required to devise agricultural, industrial, and economic systems that are sustainable and that will allow us to de-accelerate climate change, protect us from the extremes, and to adapt to what we know are the realities of climate change. And so we at UNEP, together with all the partners here, are working on standing up that knowledge and on impacting that. It's probably worthwhile stressing that the IPCC states that, and I quote, the relationship between climate change mitigation measures and water is a reciprocal one. So that means that there is a relationship and a responsibility on water managers to be mindful of this. measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as hydropower development, have a direct implications for water resource use management, and conversely, water extraction and management have an impact on carbon emission due to the energy intensity of water treatment and the distribution infrastructure, but both are critical to livelihood, sustainability, and equity, and in leaving no one behind. So we've got to get it right in these measures, right? The SDGs and the NDCs both acknowledge the role that governments and private sector and other actors have to play in water stewardship, but we still see that very few of the NDCs have fully taken water-related mitigation issues into account. So that's a to-do item for all of us around this virtual table. So not only do we need to mitigate climate change, we also need to adapt to the current and predicted climatic changes that will come. And we need to create a much healthier relationship between people and nature to meet the sustainable development goals and to provide stability and peace in fragile contexts. So I put it to you that there are 3 priorities that should guide our work as we move forward. First, we need a new contract with nature that tackles climate change and ecosystem loss. A new contract with nature. If we reduce climate change, we reduce the severity of water scarcity, we reduce the severity of droughts, of desertification, etc. If we conserve nature, we boost the healthy ecosystems, forests, rivers, waters, wetlands, lakes. All of these are critical for providing clean and abundant water. As many have said, the green pandemic packages, the stimulus packages, offer real opportunities to invest smartly for the future. Surely we are not going to not only give the next generation our pandemic debt from the stimulus packages and also a broken planet. Surely what we are going to do is to ensure that those stimulus packages make the right investments, the green investments that we need to make. So just as important is providing strong backing to the new biodiversity framework that we are negotiating as we speak, and the post-2020 framework, and seeing water in that context, and to the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. So the first thing then is finding that new contract with nature that tackles climate change and ecosystem loss. But the second thing that we must do is to ensure fair and efficient water use, particularly in arid and conflict-prone areas. When resources are scarce, we must use them wisely. This means changing how we allocate, store, and optimize water use. For agriculture, this means more crop per drop. This means smarter intensification without polluting the soils. This means smarter irrigation, smarter crop choice for the highest value, the highest nutrients, the highest productivity. We need to put R&D into that aspect and scale up technology transfer, especially in water scarce regions, which are particularly vulnerable to climate change. Access to water or lack of access to water can also contribute to local conflicts, especially where governance is weak. We have not seen interstate conflict based on water, but tensions are likely to increase in water scarce regions. And we've seen this on the map and in the news before us. So transboundary water management, inclusive water management becomes critical. So that is an area where many are working, including UNEP, to proactively find solutions. And the third area that we need to do is to tackle water pollution. Because if we are driving water scarcity due to climate change, we better not spoil the waters that we do have. We better make sure that they remain pristine. Water pollution puts our health at risk. It also drives up scarcity by the implication that other water is taken out of consumption use. And clearly what we're seeing now in the COVID-19 pandemic is the imperatives of water accessibility. Water pollution is also impacting our economies, freshwater fishing industry, water for irrigation industry, and other productive uses that cannot be put into use. Agricultural runoff, however, also has massive downstream implications, harmful algae blooms, nitrogen flows, antimicrobial resistance, and endocrine disrupting chemicals are raising health concerns across the world. And of course, especially during storms and floods, which in all likelihood, or which are increasing in a climate changing world. So water pollution, making number 3. Number 2, fair and efficient water use, leaving no one behind. And number 1, a new contract with nature. If we do this, then we will be using resources wisely. This means we need to change how we allocate, store, and optimize, as I said. So colleagues, we need to use every tool and every solution that we have in the toolbox to tackle these challenges. Boosting water and energy efficiency through investment, through technology and infrastructure can help a great deal. We can look at combined power and desal plants, combined heat and power plants, using alternative water sources for thermal power, which anyhow we need to exit from, and so on and so forth. There are a number of options that we can do here and now before we even make the green switch to reduce the impact on water. And then we need to be expeditiously moving towards green solutions in the energy space. Water management decision tools and early warning systems will help governments plan and implement policies that can head off water shortages and extreme events such as droughts and floods. This becomes all the more critical in a climate changing world. These are just a few options. I know that today you will be spending lots of time getting many more of these together and really elevating these into action. We cannot talk inside the bubble of water resource management. We need to actually take this into the field. This is why it's so good that this has a blended composition. So colleagues, water is a prerequisite for life. This we all know. Without water, we will all die within a few days. So we need to grow that collaboration. We need to ensure that we collaborate. We need to move forward on climate, on biodiversity, and on integrated water management. If we're really serious, then our aspirations can actually make an impact for climate change, for biodiversity, and for sustainable development. And we can't do that without you. So back over to you. It is a great pleasure, Maggie, to be here with you today. I have to apologize that I run away because I'm going to another thing, but I'm so pleased that I got this opportunity to speak. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inga. And a champion, but also very inspired and very passionate about all the work you're doing and making also the transition so easy, because this new contract with nature that you mentioned is also a new contract with water. And what better transition to introduce to you Mar Jun, who has developed a new contract, a new relationship when it comes to water and valuing water, and especially into the field. I had the honor of meeting him last year at World Water Week, and I'm very excited for him to share with you and others here the amazing work that he's been doing in China. He is the founder and director of one of the most influential environmental NGOs in China, the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs. And Mar Jun, it's really, really a great honor and pleasure for me to give you the floor today here. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for inviting me and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to address the most important annual gathering on water governance. More than 20 years ago, the water pollution, shortage and degradation that I witnessed in many parts of my country have prompted me to write the book, China's Water Crisis. In 2006, we established our organization, IPE, to launch the Blue Map database based on the recognition that those who are impacted by pollution and damage should be heard and be involved in environmental and water governance. One of those who approached us in the early days of our organization was the wife of a local fisherman who lived in a small town in East China, with many bottles of wastewater samples in all different striking colors and a water pollution diary. She documented the suffering of the river they depended upon, as well as the suffering of the local villagers. Through research and on-site investigations, we realized that region is the largest concentration of the global dyeing industry. Large number of dye houses and dye staff manufacturers, those chemical plants, discharge into the river network and the emission often tip the color of the season, not just in Shanghai and Beijing, and quite often in New York, Paris, I believe in London. We try to engage with the local factories, but they argue that as the suppliers of the global networks of supply chain, they would lose their business because the buyer only pay attention to the cost. But one by one, brands started comparing their list of suppliers with our blue map list of violators. In one case, first it was Gap, and then H&M, then Uniqlo, Marks & Spencer, and finally Walmart used their sourcing power to motivate one of the top 10 dye houses to spend millions of dollars to ensure that every year up to 12 million tons wastewater properly treated before it was discharged into the river. That was the very river the fisherman and his wife depended upon. To expand information transparency, along with our NGO partners, we managed to motivate the government to require tens of thousands of largest air and water emitters, those polluters, to disclose their online monitoring data every hour or every 2 hours. Then we developed the Blue Map app that enabled the people to access water quality data of rivers, lakes, drinking water sources, and coastal seas, and to visualize the performance of 5 million companies on a cell phone map. The applications of our data through green supply chain, green finance, and micro-reporting via social media have motivated so far 16,000 factories to openly address their environmental issues and violation records. We have seen significant improvement in air quality and, to a lesser degree, but still very encouraging, improvement in water quality in many regions in our country. Yet we still have 1.8 million violation records in our database. The groundwater and coastal sea pollution remain persistent. The freshwater biodiversity is still in a critical condition, with young fish and fish eggs of the Yangtze River dropped by 90%, the third largest waterway in the world, of course. Our carbon emission is about 28% of the global total. Upon all this multiple set of environmental and climate challenges, we're going through the global pandemic, which may have brought some short-term relief on the environment, but by putting the production on halt, but will create massive tension when economy trying to recover. At such a critical moment, it is inspiring for us to see enhanced climate targets set by Europe, a carbon neutrality pledge made by China recently, as well as the election result in America. We're expanding our data-driven solutions to help China, hopefully the world, to build back better. The garbage sorting map means to tackle the ocean plastic waste issue from the sources. The biodiversity map means to put all red line zones and protected zones, which cover 1/4 of China's landmass, on digital map. The carbon map we have just launched means to consolidate the long-term pledge by distributing the carbon picking targets city by city and facility by facility. The global brand map means to document how major multinational and local brands set environmental and climate targets and take actions to clean up their supply chain. Just like on water footprints, many of the brands have over 70%, sometimes 80% of their carbon embedded in upstream value chain. We're happy to see top brands from US and Europe taking the leadership role to pledge. We're helping local brands in China to catch up at this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic have highlighted how much a global risk, when materialized, may derail the world with devastating consequences. Let us seize the momentum of all the net zero commitments and turn them into a race to zero competition globally, a race that will empower a broad range of stakeholders to participate, a race that taps into the vast development of information technology, a race that will further unlock the enormous potential of innovative power, a race that will restore the climate, wetlands, rivers, forests, and biodiversity of our common, beautiful planet home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mar Jun, for not only bringing us very, very concrete ways of how we move forward. And I'm so impressed that you actually have 1.8 million recorded violation records. I mean, that's enormous amount of database, and it shows mobilization because it's citizens also that are putting that information in there. So I think what Inga was saying about this new contract that we have with nature, first of all, it's about having a new contract with ourselves and how do we want to build and transform for the future generations and for the world we want to be in today. So thank you so much again for sharing.
Thank you.
Inga and Mar Jun have really set the scene for us. And I do feel that with your insights and the ideas that you've laid out, we can move now into our breakout discussions, which will be centered around transformative solutions that showcase the power of water and climate action. We will have 3 breakout sessions. The first one will be presented by WaterAid, and it's featuring a solution on clean water and sanitation for climate justice. We've heard a bit about this from water.org also in the plenary. The second one will be presented by the International Water Management Institute, IWMI, and will dive into how high-tech insurance is helping farmers survive floods. And last but not least, our third breakout session will be presented by Wetlands Internationals, and we'll discuss scaling up the power of wetlands for ambitious climate action. Now, each of these breakout sessions will be running in parallel and will take place in virtual meeting rooms outside the Zoom platform. You should be showing up now are the links to those breakout sessions. Please join them, and then we will reconvene here on this platform in 45 minutes. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back from our breakout sessions. Our apologies for the disruption in breakout room 1. And also a reminder to put mute when not speaking. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. My name is Daniela Lorario, and I am with the High Level Climate Champions team supporting the Water Day at Race to Zero November Dialogues. It's a pleasure to be here. Today, I'll be guiding you through the Q&A portion of the session, and we'll be trying out some creative ways to bring you back out of the deep dive conversations you just had in the breakout sessions and reorient you towards your own individual and organization's commitments and action. First, I'd like to invite each of the breakout session spokesperson to take the floor and share with us in 45 seconds or less what solution was presented and some of the key takeaways from your conversation.
Daniela, this is Jennifer. I think some of the session presenters are coming back as we speak, so we might have to just give them about 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
Shall we, I
Apologize.
wonder, yeah, shall we move maybe in the meantime directly to the Mentimeter poll?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so to bring a little bit of levity into the session, before we hear the summarization points of the breakout rooms, we've prepared some Mentimeter polls for you in the audience. When was the last time you visited a wetland? Well, the pandemic here doesn't help that one, right? But you see that 5 of you have visited last week. Good. So just a reminder about the Mentimeter platform. So it's very easy. You just go online to www.menti.com and use the code 7621089. and you have access to this poll with us. Okay. Last week and last year. Yeah, sure. We can write the code on the chat. It's just a reminder, 76 21 08 9. For those of you coming back, we're on Mentimeter Poll. Please log into www.menti.com and use the code. It's also written on the chat, 76 21 08 9, on when was the last time you visited a wetland. So now we have more newcomers and they've never been to a wetland. I'm glad that everybody knows what a wetland is. So this one's a tricky. When was the last time you had to take a, I think I'm not allowed to say that, in the street? Okay, there's last week there. Two of you. For those of you joining in late, we're on a Mentimeter poll. Please go to www.menti.com and use the code 7621089 and answer us, when was the last time you had to take in the street? So just, you know, if you answered never on the last question, be mindful how privileged we are, right? Now, how much more carbon do wetlands save compared to forests? This is a tricky one. Twice as much, the same amount, 3 times as much, or 10 times as much? Okay. We already have a lot of answers. So they save twice as much, and still wetlands are being lost 3 times as fast as forests. So there you go. I gave a spoiler, but 10 of us got it right. When was it the last time you came face to face with someone who didn't have access to a toilet in their home? Sadly, as we mentioned on the chat, according to WHO, 2 billion people don't have access to toilets in the world.
Danny, you're on mute.
Apologies. So we have those 2 questions that are left open and flagged all day. One of them is, what concrete water actions have you or your organization taken to achieve net zero resilient water use? Please include name in your answer. Good. We see some action here. Stop eating meat, going vegan, go Julia. Research on the transition to renewable energy and reducing water-related energy. Capturing using rainwater in our offices for toilet flushing and a constructed wetland for water treatment. Rainwater collection. Good. New plant-based products. Planning a goal campaign race for resilience. Where water is. Thank you. An impact area. Thank you, David. Renew Our Earth has water initiative in Lom, Togo. Rainwater for agriculture. So as a reminder, Kate told us that this question will be open all day. So we're waiting for more commitments from you and your organizations. Now, I think we head back to what I said in the beginning. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Daniela Arroyo, and I'm with the High Level Climate Champions team. And I'll be guiding you through this Q&A portion. So I'd like to invite each of the breakout sessions spokesperson to take a floor and share with us in 45 seconds or less what solution was presented and some of the key takeaways from your conversation. So for the transformative solution on water and sanitation for climate justice with WaterAid, I will invite Jonathan, please, to read out the summary points.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. So we had a really good session. Unfortunately, it was slightly interrupted, but we still had some good thoughts from Kathleen from the OECD and also Evie from the Militia Foundation. And what we were stressing was the need for capacity and action on the ground, both to monitor and manage crises, the overlapping crises of the water and climate change and now the pandemic. But also this local action means that people are empowered to respond to these and also think of innovative solutions that work for them and build a low carbon and sustainable future. And the key points were about making sure that we did this in line with the need to respect human rights and diversity, but also, of course, to link up global international institutions to get both finance and resources, but also attention where it matters, and to make sure those we never forget about the needs of the most vulnerable communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan, and also our apologies to the disruption on your breakouts. So now for the third transformative solutions on ecosystems and nature-based solutions, scaling up the power of wetlands for ambitious climate action with Wetlands International. The presenter is Jane. Jane, would you read out some of the key takeaways from your conversation to us?
With pleasure, Danielle. Yes, we had a group which spanned from big business to civil society organizations operating in Chad and Ethiopia. The main conclusion is that healthy biodiverse wetlands, which store and regulate water in the landscape, should be considered as critical infrastructure to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And in this sense, they're also critical for underpinning green recovery. And we reflected on the fact that whilst even if emissions are reduced, resilience for the most vulnerable people will still depend on putting back wetlands in good condition in the landscape to reduce these water hazards and disasters. And that those communities themselves are key to making those solutions happen, bringing their local knowledge in to help transform their own landscapes. We focused a lot on the need to value wetlands properly and the potential for safeguarding and recovering wetland systems to deliver a triple win in the sense of reducing and avoiding carbon emissions, but also building resilience of vulnerable communities, benefiting their health and livelihoods. And that valuing the financial, social and natural capital is vital to underpin policies and investments in this direction. So in this sense, we also pointed to the importance of the NDCs and enabling countries to properly build in the role of ecosystems. So first to recognize the anthropogenic emissions from degraded wetlands, and then to build in ecosystem-based solutions. And we think that countries need some help to bring this knowledge in the right way. And lastly, maybe most importantly, we want to flag up the need for ambitious targets for wetland recovery to be set and adopted at the country and the global level. And everyone felt that this is really needed to drive partnerships, investments and action between business, government and civil society. And connecting back to this issue of building in the metrics and the values into that process. So this is maybe something for the upcoming climate COP and other relevant COPs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jane. Now for the transformative solution on flood and drought management, how high-tech insurance is helping farmers survive floods with IWMI. Please, Rachel, would you read out the summary points?
Thank you very much. And if only we could have been in all the other sessions as well. They sound superb as well. So we shone a spotlight on a particular project. Well, this project, or it's a program really, that spans the area of Bangladesh and India and focuses on floods. And this project is highlighting how we can use satellite data as well as mobile phone payment, many different sorts of payments, and then link that through with other forms of payout. So when a flood comes along, if you're a smallholder farmer, you want to be able to recover quickly. So what is needed to that? So we need to be able to find out where the damage is, and then what is needed in the payback. And we heard from the chairman of Bahar State talking about what is needed in his state in terms of the insurance and where we can scale it. We heard from the CEO of Green Delta Insurance in Bangladesh, where this solution is being used, and there were some fantastic ideas about what we can learn from the experience from this to take it to other areas. And then we had the head of agriculture for Swiss Re talking about the role of reinsurance companies. So it's not just the local insurance companies or the government officials, how reinsurance companies can bring in their expertise. But in every single one, we heard about the need to co-design those solutions with farmers. What do farmers need as and when? We also heard about the role of microfinance and microinsurance as part of that, and how there are ways of using microfinance to build resilience measures like different crops, different water systems. So using microfinance to ensure that when the next flood comes, the farmers are better prepared, so they need less reliance on the insurance. So it was a fantastic link across that. And then the last speaker was talking about how we can bring inclusion into the design of insurance products to make sure we are able to, different castes, different gender, different age groups, different literacy levels can be used to design those insurance products. So it was a very practical session, but lots to learn to take through as we think about using financial risk management instruments to manage droughts and floods going forward. Thank you very much, Danielle.
So thank you so much for the presenters and partners, Jonathan from WaterAid, Rachel from IWMI, and Jane from Wetlands International. Maggie, now I pass it to you.